Some people show their true colors when they think you're not watching. In my case, it took being in a coma for my husband's family to reveal just how far they'd go for money, but they didn't know that I'd already seen through their masks long ago. I'm Sophia Bennett, 35 years old, and this is the story of how my husband's family tried to steal my inheritance while I was fighting for my life and how their greed led to their own downfall. My parents were self-made millionaires who never forgot their humble beginnings. They built their fortune through hard work and smart investments, but what they really built was a legacy of giving back. Growing up, they taught me that money was a tool for helping others, not a measure of worth. Remember, sweetheart, my father would say, wealth without purpose is just numbers in a bank account. It's what you do with it that matters. I met my husband Andrew at a charity gala 5 years ago. He seemed different from the other trust fund kids I'd grown up around. He was working as a public defender, seemingly more interested in justice than luxury. I fell in love with his apparent dedication to helping others. His family was another story. My mother-in-law Margaret was obsessed with maintaining appearances, constantly dropping hints about their old money background. My father-in-law Richard spent most of his time at his country club, complaining about taxes. And Andrew's sister Victoria, well, she never tried to hide her interest in my family's wealth. It must be nice, she'd say during family dinners, having so much money just handed to you. Some of us have to work for a living. What she didn't know was that I'd been working since I was 16, starting in my parents' company mailroom and working my way up. The fact that my parents were wealthy didn't mean I got a free ride, it meant I had to work twice as hard to prove myself. Last year, my parents died in a plane crash. It was devastating, not just personally but for all the charitable projects they'd been involved with. They left me their entire estate, approximately $7 million in liquid assets, plus various properties and business interests. That's when I started noticing changes in Andrew and his family. Suddenly, Victoria was my best friend, always wanting to go shopping or have lunch. Margaret started calling me darling and including me in her country club activities. Richard began asking for my opinion on investment opportunities. And Andrew, he started talking about quitting his public defender job, about how we could do more good with my inheritance than by defending one client at a time. I wasn't fooled. I'd seen this behavior before, people changing when they smell money, so I made some quiet arrangements, following my parents' example of careful planning and strategic thinking. Then came the accident. I was driving home from a late meeting with my parents' foundation trustees when a drunk driver ran a red light. The doctors later told me I was technically dead for 2 minutes before they brought me back. I slipped into a coma that would last for 3 weeks. What I didn't know then was that Andrew and his family wasted no time putting their plan into action. They thought they had the perfect opportunity. I was unconscious. The inheritance was still being processed, and Andrew had power of attorney as my husband. They forged documents. They falsified signatures. They even hired actors to impersonate me in video calls with banks and lawyers, all to transfer my inheritance into accounts they controlled. What they didn't know was that 2 days before my accident, I'd already executed my own plan. I woke up to Andrew holding my hand, tears in his eyes. Darling, he said, I have some bad news about the inheritance. I waited to hear what story he'd tell me. There were some complications with the estate. The lawyers say there might have been some mismanagement. The assets, they're gone. I watched his face carefully. He was trying to look devastated, but there was a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. Gone? I whispered, my voice hoarse from weeks of disuse. We've transferred everything we could salvage, he said. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Victoria knows some excellent financial advisors. That's when I pressed the call button for my nurse. She came in quickly, followed by my lawyer, Mr. Harrison, who'd been waiting outside. Perfect timing, I said. I think it's time we discussed what really happened to my inheritance. Andrew's face went pale. What do you mean? Mr. Harrison opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Mrs. Bennett, he said formally, would you like me to explain what happened to your estate while you were unconscious? Please do, I nodded. I'm sure my husband would be very interested to hear about all the forged documents and fake video calls. Andrew jumped up. That's ridiculous. You can't prove. Actually, Mr. Harrison interrupted, we can prove everything. Your sister Victoria isn't as clever with technology as she thinks. She left quite a trail of evidence when she hired those actors, not to mention the rather obvious forgeries of Mrs. Bennet's signature. But the money, Andrew sputtered, the accounts are empty. Yes, I said quietly, they are, because 2 days before my accident, I donated my entire inheritance to the Bennett Foundation for Children's Education, every penny of it. The silence in the room was deafening. You, what? Andrew whispered. The foundation my parents started, I explained. I transferred everything to it, with strict controls and oversight. The paperwork was filed and confirmed before the accident, so all those accounts you tried to steal from, they were already empty. The money is being used to build schools in underprivileged areas, fund scholarships, and support education initiatives worldwide. But, that was our money, Victoria burst out from the doorway. I hadn't even noticed her and their parents arriving. No, I said firmly, it was never your money. It was a responsibility my parents entrusted to me, and I honored their legacy the way they would have wanted. You can't do this, Margaret declared. Andrew is your husband. He has rights. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Actually, about that, he pulled out another document. Mrs. Bennett also instructed me to file these papers as soon as she regained consciousness. Andrew grabbed the papers, his face growing even paler. Divorce papers? You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, I said, and before you think about contesting anything, you should know that we have complete documentation of your attempted fraud. Would you like to see the video footage of Victoria hiring those actors? Or perhaps the evidence of your father's meetings with that shady financial advisor who helped you forge the documents? Richard, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. Now see here, we can work something out. No, I cut him off. We can't. What we can do is this, you all leave now, quietly, and never contact me again. The foundation's lawyers won't pursue criminal charges for your attempted fraud, but if you try to contest the divorce or make any claims on my assets, everything we have goes straight to the district attorney. You planned this, Andrew accused. You never trusted us. No, I corrected him. I gave you every chance to prove you were the person I thought you married. You chose to show me who you really are instead. I just made sure there would be consequences for that choice. They left eventually, Margaret in tears, Victoria cursing under her breath, Richard looking shell-shocked. Andrew lingered at the door. I did love you, he said quietly. Maybe, I replied, but you loved money more. Goodbye, Andrew. The aftermath was surprisingly peaceful. The divorce went through without contest. They couldn't fight it without risking criminal charges. The Bennett Foundation flourished, funding educational programs that would have made my parents proud. Victoria tried to spin a story in their social circle about me being mentally unstable and making rash decisions, but it backfired when the Foundation's first annual report was published, showing exactly how the money was being used to help thousands of children get better education opportunities. Andrew went back to his public defender job, though I heard he had trouble explaining to his colleagues why his lifestyle suddenly changed so dramatically. Margaret had to downgrade her country club membership. Richard's golf buddies stopped inviting him to invest in their business ventures. Me? I focused on running the foundation, carrying on my parents' legacy of making a real difference in the world. The doctors said my recovery from the coma was remarkable, maybe because I had a purpose pushing me forward. Last week, I received an invitation to a charity gala. The host, a young man who'd received one of the foundation's first scholarships, now a successful entrepreneur giving back to his community. The invitation came with a note. Your parents' legacy, and your wisdom in protecting it, changed my life and the lives of countless others. Thank you for seeing the true value of inheritance. I thought about Andrew and his family, about how they saw $7 million as a ticket to a luxury lifestyle. They never understood that the real inheritance wasn't the money, it was the opportunity to make a difference. The foundation now helps over 10,000 students annually. We've built 15 schools, established hundreds of scholarships, and created educational programs that will impact generations to come. The initial $7 million has grown through careful management and additional donations from people inspired by our mission. Sometimes I wonder if Andrew and his family ever realized what they really lost. Not the money they tried to steal, but the chance to be part of something meaningful, something bigger than themselves. Last month, I saw Victoria at a coffee shop. She was complaining loudly about how hard it is to find good help these days. I sat quietly at my table, reading through scholarship applications from bright young students eager for a chance to learn and grow. One of those applications was from a girl whose single mother works as a housekeeper at the country club where Margaret used to be a member. The girl wants to study computer science and develop educational software for children with learning disabilities. She has the grades, the drive, and now, thanks to the foundation, she'll have the opportunity. That's the thing about karma, sometimes it does more than just punish the guilty. Sometimes it takes their bad intentions and turns them into something beautiful. My parents would have loved that. The doctors say the coma could have killed me. Instead, it gave me a chance to see people's true colors and ensure that my parents' legacy would be protected and used the way they would have wanted. Andrew still sends the occasional email, usually when he's had too much to drink, talking about how we could work things out. I never respond. The Foundation's quarterly reports, publicly available online, are all the response needed. Margaret tried to join the Foundation's board of directors last year, claiming she wanted to help guide the family legacy. Her application was politely declined. The board is made up of educators, community leaders, and former scholarship recipients, people who understand that true wealth isn't about taking, but giving. Victoria started her own charitable foundation recently. Last I heard, it had hosted 3 fashion shows and donated a total of $500 to actual causes. Meanwhile, the Bennett Foundation has expanded to 3 continents and partnered with major educational institutions worldwide. The drunk driver who caused my accident made a full recovery and served time for his actions. Upon his release, he asked to speak at one of our foundation's events about the consequences of poor choices. His honesty and remorse were a stark contrast to my former in-laws' persistent denial of their actions. Richard still tells people at his country club that I was confused after the coma and made irrational decisions. The irony is that my decision to protect my inheritance was made with perfect clarity before the accident ever happened. I saw what they were becoming and chose to act before they had the chance. The Foundation's office has a wall of photos, students graduating, new schools opening, lives being changed. Next to it hangs a simple quote from my father: "Wealth without purpose is just numbers in a bank account. It's what you do with it that matters." I think about that quote every time I hear about Andrew and his family's continued attempts to maintain their facade of prosperity. They thought $7 million would solve all their problems. They never understood that money without meaning only creates more emptiness. My parents left me more than money, they left me wisdom, values, and a vision of how wealth could be used to make the world better. Their real legacy isn't in bank accounts or property deeds. It's in the thousands of lives being improved every day through education and opportunity. And that's something no one can forge papers to steal.